And I will tell you, those things that I shared with you, and those things in particular, those two things, really have informed the way I think about so many issues that challenge us. Those circumstances being one of the circumstances of my birth, a child of the civil rights movement, and my career as a prosecutor. And all of that leads me to think about a lot of issues in a way that is behind the spirit of the document that I filed whenever I've done my work. When I filed that document, it never reads the name of the victim versus the name of the defendant. It always reads the people versus the defendant. Because in our system of justice, we have rightly said, a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. And in particular, when we know that harm is most often directed at the most voiceless and vulnerable among us. So let's think about some of the challenges that we face as a country that demand that we think about the voice of the people. Well, I've begun to think about 5 priority issues in a way that I'm thinking about as the 5 E's. So here you go, Kamala, where are you going with that? Okay, here you go. 5 E's. Education.
Yeah.
The economy, the environment, equality, and engagement. Education. Years ago when I was DA, I did a study of the homicide victims who were under the age of 25 because we just had a lot of them. The data came back and it included the fact that 94% were high school dropouts. When I went over to the school district, I learned that of the chronically and individually truant students, 40% were elementary school students, missing in some cases 40, 50, up to 80 days of 180 days school. So when I became your Attorney General, I commissioned the first study ever in the state of California on the subject. And I learned a few things. Indeed, 40% of the truant students are elementary school students. And an elementary school student who is truant is 3 to 4 times likely to be a high school dropout. 82% of the prisoners in the United States are high school dropouts. An African-American man who was a high school dropout between the age of 30 and 34 is 2/3 likely to be in jail, have been in jail, or dead. I learned the significance of 3rd grade reading level. If by the end of 3rd grade, a child is not at 3rd grade reading level, they literally drop off. Because think about it. Before 3rd grade, a child is learning how to read. Then comprehension kicks in, and they're reading to learn. If they've not learned how to read, they cannot read to learn, and they drop off. Another fact, in our country at the age of 3, a child who is being raised in a public assistance or low-income household has heard 30 million fewer words than a child being raised in a middle or upper-income household. Not 30 million different words, but 30 million fewer words. I learned another fact. I started asking, well, how much is this costing us? And realized that California taxpayers, we pay $46 billion a year because of the burden high school dropouts place on our public safety, public health, and social services systems and what they're not contributing to the tax base. They're extremely expensive. So folks, this is what I say everywhere I go. You don't have to care about children to care about children. Right. If you care about why you have 3 padlocks on your front door, if you care about why you complain about those taxes every year, you need to care about children. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. On the issue of the economy, well, there's a lot to talk about there. There's what we need to talk about in terms of investing in the skills and the development of skills to take on the jobs in the 21st century. And then there is the issue of minimum wage. Federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. That translates to less than $15,000 a year. 2/3 of minimum wage workers are women. So if she is a parent, if he is a parent trying to keep a roof over their head, they're probably holding down 2 jobs. What do you think that means when they come home at night and look at those kids? They're saying 2 days and 2 days only. Sit down and eat and go to bed. Those children, by the way, are sitting down to a warm meal. They're going to sleep in a clean bed. And every night that parent comes home, they are putting aside dollars for their college tuition, believing those children can one day grow up to be Attorney General of California, the Speaker of the California Assembly. But that parent is just trying to hold it together. And invariably, because I've seen it countless times, that parent comes home and looks at their 7-year-old and says, sweetheart, I need you to stay home for the next week. because your 2-year-old brother is sick. Why is that parent doing that? Well, in that minimum wage job, if they don't show up for work, they don't get paid. And we have no national commitment to paid family leave, no national commitment to affordable child care, much less universal pre-K or full-day kindergarten. And then where do we think those children end up? We'll see last conversation. And then what do we as a society have the gall to do when we look at that situation? We start throwing back our noses, we start wagging our fingers, and we say, it must be those parents. We have to have a national commitment to support working families with their natural desire to parent their children. What we are doing in terms of the environment. Well, let's first of all say that we have just got to ignore the science deniers in Washington, D.C. And understand that California is both the canary in the coal mine and we are the solution. We know climate change is real. We have been experiencing it. The El Nino wasn't all it was supposed to be. We know climate change is real, and we know it's caused by human beings. So let's take to the country what we have done as a state. We have rightly said, which should be a national policy, let's look at cap and trade as an effective way to fight climate change. Let's invest in renewable energy. Let's do what we need to do better across this country around diversifying water policy in a way that puts equal resources into not only conservation, but also recycling and storage of water and capturing storm water and underground storage and desalination. Let's look at this issue in a way that we understand it's a public health matter.
Yeah.
It's also about jobs, because guess what? When we bring those federal dollars back to California to build up the infrastructure, we will be creating jobs. And it is about national security. Because folks, right now we know wars are being fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water. Let's play long game on that. And let California refused to defend a patently unconstitutional law, which is what Prop 8 was. It was and remains to be a front and center civil rights issue of our time. And there are others. Let's talk about a woman's right to choose to make decisions about her own reproductive. It's also a society that denies a woman access to economic health and well-being. These issues are and another on the list of our civil rights challenges of our time is one that California has an outsized stake in resolving, and that is the issue of immigration. So let's talk about this for a moment. We have as many as 12 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. California has the largest number of immigrants, documented and undocumented, of any state in the country. And what troubles me so is that these supposed leaders have almost successfully conflated criminal justice policy with immigration policy, as though they are the same thing. They are not. These are two separate policy areas with their own methodologies, their variables, problems, and solutions. And yes, there will be that extremely tragic case, and thankfully rare, like the case that occurred in San Francisco, where a young woman was killed. And the prosecutor in me is really clear on this matter. When the evidence proves that guy guilty, lock him up for as long as we can. But it is irresponsible to suggest that we would craft public policy for 12 million people around our collective outrage around one man's conduct.
Okay.
And let's also deal with another reality of the challenge we have. The conversation has taken place around this misinformed term, this wrong term, this term, illegal alien. Folks, I have personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. I have seen some of the worst criminal behavior, some of the worst crime. An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. And then finally on the issue of engagement, I say this. We know we live in a dangerous world. The question becomes, what is our role? What is America's role? And role of leadership. And to that I say, let us lead with our values. And our values require us to prioritize engagement. Let's work with our allies around the globe to achieve our common purpose. And while doing that, let's always remember the image of Paris. In that tragedy, you know, the only American that was killed was California, a student at Cal State Long Beach. Let's always remember the image of San Bernardino. The day after that crime, and it was a crime, occurred, law enforcement there asked me to visit and see the scene, which I did. And it was awful. And the toll of that crime of violence exacted on those families and that community in our state and our country must never be forgotten. And to lead with our values also requires that we remember the image of the 3-year-old Syrian baby that washed up on the Mediterranean. We must lead with our values. So in closing, I'll say this. I think that sometimes when we point out what's not working with our country, when we're critical, some people would suggest that it invites a question about one's love of country. I reject that notion. I say there are 2 definitions of what it means to be a patriot. There is the definition that suggests you defend your country whatever it does. And then there is the kind of patriot I believe us all to be. The kind that will fight each and every day for the ideals of our country. And that's what this race is about. We've got 4 days to do it, and I'm just so thankful to all of you for being here. And why don't we now take a little bit of questions and comments.